Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and thank you for joining us for one of our talks today. Today, we're joined by the fantastic team behind the movie, Mark, Mary, and some other people. We have Hannah Marks, who is the writer, director, and producer of the movie, along with cast members Ben Rosenfield and Hayley Law. And Hannah, I wanted to start by talking a lot about the
Oh,
tonal.
hi. I didn't realize we were doing a wave.
I wanted to start by talking about the tonal voice that you found for this movie because it really beautifully creates this myriad between the comedy and also the emotional textures and layers between these two characters at so many different points in their relationship and so many beats. And so when you were first working on and writing the script, what was that journey of figuring out what you wanted the overall voice and feel and atmosphere of the film to be in that way?
Well, thank you. And I just really wanted to write a story that felt like this is what could really happen. So a lot of the tonal shifts just came from the things that happen in life. 1 second something's funny and light and full of love, and then another second something really terrible can happen. So I knew I wanted it to be a mix, and I knew I wanted it to follow what I thought could actually happen. But it was really important to have a lot of silliness and a lot of comedy, and let everyone kind of be their weird selves. That was definitely important from the start.
I love it. And I feel like it brings us straight into that as well. Hayley and Ben, when your characters first kind of reconnect, within minutes, they're in a bathroom while she's taking a pregnancy test. And there's so many beautifully awkward and uncomfortable, but also very comfortable and humorous beats all within that scene, even down to the music that ends up happening and the singing. And so I was really interested in how filming a scene like that really is part of the pivotal introduction for the audience to the characters, actually really opened up all the different directions that you could then take your performances throughout the rest of the film.
That's a great question. Yeah, I love the way that Mark and Mary meet in that convenience store, and where that sort of impromptu date goes, as you said, with the pregnancy test in the bathroom and singing. Um, and I would say that there's something about that, like they have this great conversation before they go in the bathroom, which I think is pretty much to script, and I think it says a lot about the characters, where they are when they're meeting each other. And it ends in the bathroom with Mark singing like this, and that was a moment that was more improvisatory. And yeah, in the script it was like Mark sings Mary's song. I think there was like a couple lines of it maybe but mostly it was
So
sort of like
you
an
made up a
improv.
good amount of it for
Yeah,
sure.
it's a
Yeah.
Rosenfield original.
Yes.
We were just and
Solo writer credit on that if you want it.
but yeah, I just feel like, there's a lot of Mark's journey right there in that first sequence. It's sort of like a micro version of the whole thing, right? He's like, who is this person? She's kind of wild and interesting and edgy and making me uncomfortable, but I'm really attracted to her. And she's pushing me to do something that I feel uncomfortable with, like singing or even being in a bathroom with her. But by the end of it, it feels so good. It's like he's come out of his skin in a good way. So yeah.
I was actually going to say, I don't think it's the script. I think it's a testament to you guys, because it's a very hard thing to pull off, that opening where it's very conversational, like a play, and one character remembers the other and the other doesn't. And it's such a balancing act to believe that they would fall in love over the course of just a few scenes in such mundane places. So I think you guys really sold that with your commitment, more so than the script. But I'll take the credit, but I think it was you guys.
That's you too.
And was that the same for you in filming that particular scene at the beginning, Hayley?
I love that scene. I love how that intros the characters. I think we obviously do a much deeper dive into both of them, but I think that scene so beautifully shows you Mary and Mark. And yeah, I love that opening. And even if I wasn't in the movie, that would be an opening that I love. I love it so much.
I love that we were setting up Mark's emotional eating and Mary's more promiscuous nature in that first scene. And you guys so beautifully played against it too, which I really liked. It weren't leaning too far in one direction. It was just kind of who they were.
Mm-hmm.
It's also such a pivotal introduction because, like you said, Hannah, we then jump forward and see the entire development of the early stages to marriage of this relationship in really just a few scenes in those first few moments of the film. And so, for all of you, wanted to ask about the journey of filming all these really brief vignette moments where sometimes a scene is just a few seconds, but you're carrying the relationship forward so much in every singular beat, and you still have to communicate to the audience where they're at emotionally, both as individuals and together within these relationship in such fast snaps.
They were long when we shot them. I think that helped. You know, like we were that day that tiny little snippet you see of us in the pool, we were in the pool for like 2 hours, felt like. So, and I loved seeing it come together because you never know, especially with our honeymoon stuff. We just spent the weekend or whatever. We all spent a couple days together, and it's so, I love seeing how it translates, because watching it felt like two people who just got married genuinely. And also I remember driving and we had a just married sign on the back of our car and people were like, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it feels pretty good.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for a montage just because I love to put as much music in movies as possible. I'm sure that not everyone's a fan of that, but I can't help myself. So it's a good opportunity to not only have a lot of great music, but also get to improvise and play and have more freedom.
Yeah, it definitely brought out that, for those sequences, it's like, it just has the physical action that we're doing written in the script. And you don't hear all the dialogue, but we were talking to each other, and it really did add to the story. And those moments were really fun to act to, because I think everybody has a little bit less of a plan in their mind in those situations where you're shooting a montage sequence. Like, obviously you're going to prepare your big speech, by weeks in advance, but there's something about that, like, we're just rolling with it off the cuff now. And yeah, I think that there's like a lot of honesty in that type of work sometimes.
Yeah, it forces you to let go, which can be really, really hard, but it's important. I mean, I'll never forget you guys like doing the worm on the floor of the hotel, like high on mushrooms. That was so fun for me, and you guys were so brave to just really go for it.
Yeah, that was fun.
Hannah, for that particular scene, did you always know the visual aesthetics of how you wanted that scene to look? Because that's a moment where there's a really wonderful playfulness that feeds into that moment in the way that you visually tell it on screen.
Yeah, I always wanted to shoot at Madonna Inn for any project, and this felt like the perfect one because it's such a great honeymoon spot. But then I also really, really wanted to use the body camera or the story cam technique, which was really, really fun because you see it a lot of times in like, serious Requiem for a Dream kind of drug addict movies that are really, really intense. So it was very fun to get to play with it in this context. So we had a lot of fun with the mushrooms. I'm sorry if you guys ate some gross fake magic mushrooms, but I think it paid off.
They were gross, but it definitely paid off.
Real mushrooms taste gross too. So there you go.
Hannah, I also really love the intimacy of the camera work and the way that you use it to bring us so close to these characters, and was interested at the point when you realized that visually that was a really important detail in how you brought us into their relationship, and then used it to bring us closer or to have a little bit of distance when they're apart a little bit more as well.
I mean, I'm such a sucker for a close-ups and montages. I think because I have an acting background, I'm really obsessed with seeing the actor's face as much as possible. I like to see every thought that's going on. So that's really important to me just from the acting side. And also I love to cast people whose faces I find really interesting and who can carry that close up. And both Hayley and Ben have such compelling faces that they are, the rare type of actor that really can hold such a close frame. So that was important to me, not only in the camera work, but in the casting process, because they are one and the same at some point.
And for the two of you, how did that influence the way that Hannah was working with you on a lot of scenes and the way that you were thinking about your performance, particularly given that there are so many moments where the camera's just close up and just holding on you for a lot of those beats between the dialogue?
I love that. And I love close-ups as well, because I feel like you get to see so much more from so much less of a performance. You have to really be present and feeling something. And if you're doing it correctly, you feel it with that close up. I always feel that way with Elizabeth Moss in Handmaid's Tale. She's just, the way she handles a close up, that I think is what made me love close ups. And not that I'm thinking of her when I'm getting a close up, but the way that you are feeling internally shows the closer the camera is, I think. And I love it. I think whether you're happy or in love or upset, having moments where the audience can be right there with you, it's so touching to me.
Yeah. And I will say our DP did a great, and Hannah did a great job of, I didn't know where the camera was really, you know what I mean? Like they were like, do your thing. Don't let what we want to do stop you from doing anything. Do your thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be here filming you, and we'll let you know if you need to do anything else.
Yeah.
I really felt like with so much of this, I was just there with Hayley. We were just, it was just us there. And I think that's only gets even more the case. Like, yeah, there's an intimacy with the three of us, the DP and Hayley and I, in some of those beds.
Especially because he's operating.
Yeah. I was thinking that, being on the toilet with Casey right there. That's an intimate moment.
I was really proud of Casey. I mean, it was his first feature after having done mostly music videos and commercials. And, it's such a big learning curve. And he brought so much excitement and joy to each day. And he really did want to support the actors, which is not always the case.
I love Casey.
Fantastic. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about Mark and Mary's journey towards having those conversations and exploring ethical non-monogamy with one another, and kind of starting with talking to you a little bit about it, Hayley, because you have to ultimately carry your character on a journey even before she tells her husband that this is something that she's interested in exploring within their relationship. And so even before you filmed the scene where he's in the shower and she's trying to kind of muster up to actually say it out loud to him, how were you carrying that in your performance and really thinking about it cognizantly in a lot of the scenes leading up to that moment as well?
Mm-hmm. I think we've all had conversations that have been hard with somebody in your life, and I carried that feeling before we shot that scene. So even when we were doing it, I was very nervous to bring it up, and remembered many times in many relationships where I've wanted to tell somebody something or talk about something and you just don't because you feel like you can't. But even going through that scene helped me in my real life with just getting it out. It's hard. Conversations are hard, but you just got to do them. And that scene helped me in my real life with that. It was odd, but I love that scene a lot.
It's interesting. That was the note I got time and time again on the script. Really, the main note I always got from people was something needed everyone wanted something big to happen to cause Mary to ask for this open relationship from a script level, because that's kind of the traditional structural way to do it, right? Something has to happen to trigger something. And for me, I was always pretty fundamentally against that, because I liked the idea that this is who Mary is, regardless. She doesn't need some kind of traumatic event or some past boyfriend to cause her to want this. I think it's who she is to try something, and it doesn't need to be sparked from someone else. So that was also kudos to you, Hayley, for pulling that off, because there isn't some major event that makes Mary think this way. It's just who she is.
I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not that there's anything missing in their relationship, and they're in a really good place. And,
exactly.
And for you, Ben, your kind of arc is then coming on the other end of that conversation, where he's so reticent to the idea at first, but does come around to being open to it. And obviously, really thinking about what the parameters need to be for his own sense of self as well. And so how were you playing a lot of those scenes to bring him to a point of being completely open to trying this within his relationship from the initial, like, I don't even want to have a conversation, because you're really gradually just building on it bit by bit, scene by scene again?
Yeah. I think I think for Mark, it's sort of like a matter of, I think he really likes the security and stability that he's found in being married, and excited about like building that out even more. Um, and so he's just sort of sidelined by this suggestion that they open the relationship up. And I think he takes it the wrong way, which is he takes it very personally, like, you must not like me anymore. I'm the problem, and this must mean you're not attracted to me, and all these things, which is probably why he doesn't really want to talk about it. And yeah, you know, as it goes on, I think he has to talk about it. It gets to a point where, I mean, as you see in the movie, things start to happen, and so they're forced to communicate. And yeah, I think that it's like where you see his character to start to grow in a lot of interesting ways.
And because, Hannah, you then write in the idea, particularly coming from Mark, about what they want the parameters and the rules within their relationship to be, what was your process and journey of really figuring out what that needed to be for these characters narratively?
I was just thinking of what I would want. But I think Hayley and Ben definitely riffed and invented a few on the spot. I think I forget which one of you had the like no oral sex rule, which was also like so strange and such a not the rule that I was necessarily expecting, but it just kind of came out of our conversations, I think that morning, and got added to the list. And it just shows like the longer you think about these things, the more you're going to think about the stuff that makes you uncomfortable, and the more the relationship has to evolve to adapt the new circumstances. And we were kind of imitating that with the art in a way.
I also love some of the comedic beats that come from them having conversations about this in the middle of a restaurant and wait staff coming over. And there's more than one instance in the film of that happening. What was the genesis behind realizing that that could play comedically in such a specific way, to have someone walk over in the middle of them having a very intimate and in-depth conversation?
I think I've just always been the person that says things way too loudly, whether it be on the
real life
subway or in a restaurant or in a movie theater. And I've always had friends that are like, "Hannah, you can't say that in public," you know? So I think it just came from really all my friends being frustrated with how loudly I gossip and say the wrong thing.
And, you know, it does speak to like this whole, as a society, we're embarrassed to talk about sex. It probably like shouldn't be such a big weird thing for someone to walk in on, but you know, we're all so ashamed for some reason.
Totally. It's like we watched so many, like, I mean, nothing against Squid Game, and I haven't finished it yet, so no spoilers, but like we're watching everyone get murdered like relentlessly, but someone shows a nipple and it's like, whoa.
God forbid somebody say penis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then, Hayley, we were talking about Ben's musical moment in the film earlier, but there's so many great musical moments with Mary through her band, and there's such an expression of character in the music that she's performing and practicing with her band. And so how did that really help you tap into like yet another layer of who she was as a character and the way that she expresses herself?
I love that Mary is a musician. That's one of my favorite things about her. And I feel like it's definitely where she puts some frustration and lets loose. We see that a couple times in the movie. And I think it's such a great layer to her, especially because we see she's sitting with Mark and going over band names, and it just travels with her throughout the whole movie, not just when she's performing. I feel like the music and her as a musician and as an artist is a part of who she is. It's not just a musical moment in the movie. It very much it's how she makes decisions and who she is. And yeah, I love that's one of my favorite things about Mary.
I mean, I have some regrets because I really want to shoot you guys doing a show, not just practicing. Yeah. And I also, you know, from getting to know Ben during this process, like he can really sing and play music. And so I'm like, what a missed opportunity. So maybe we got to do a sequel where Mark and Mary get back together for a band in a band, and then they have to perform live somewhere. I know we've seen it, but I want to do it again, and I think it would be really fun.
I'll do it again and again.
I'm in.
Yes. Can't wait. And then, Hannah, I wanted to talk about the production design details, because there's so many scenes that take place in their bedroom, and you've got that giant kind of orange sunset seascape wall that they're in front of for a number of scenes, but then it's also when you look around the room and all of the different objects that you've placed there tell us a story about them and their relationship. And even down to the fact that there's a moment where they're laying in bed and they both have different pillows, which kind of communicates a little bit of distance and space between them right next to each other. And so how did you want to set up so many small details and really think about every single corner of the frame and communicating their emotional arc?
Yeah, so the sunset mural was in the script from the start, just because there's such a big grass is always greener theme, I think, to this movie. And the idea of like they're living in sunny Los Angeles, but here they are like forcing a sunset on the wall. So that was always in there. And I also love the idea that that could be the backdrop to all of their dating app pictures. So it kind of was functioning on multiple levels. But a lot of the rest of it is kudos to Miranda Lorenz, a woman on our crew who it was her first feature, I believe, after coming from music videos. And she's a dear friend of mine. I've known her since middle school. So it was really fun getting to bring her on because we had so much shared history and nostalgia for the same types of pieces. So she was terrific. And I think she did a great job.
Yeah.
And within character details as well, there's also kind of an underlying dialogue about that idea of what you want to be able to do that you're really passionate about, particularly if it's something creative, against what you need to do as survival jobs. And we get to see that through both of these characters. We get to see the things that they're really passionate and really excited by. You know, I don't think Mark's necessarily to be excited to be working for a plastics company by the end of the film, you know, and even for Mary with the voiceover work, it's like, obviously not every job is a passion project, even within a realm that she clearly enjoys a lot. And so what was kind of the underlying conversation that you wanted to be able to express through these characters for all of you in terms of that dilemma of the things that you do against the things that you really want to be pursuing at certain points in life?
Yeah, I think it was important to show a hustle job. You know, Mark also walks dogs and Mary cleans houses and purposefully omits that she cleans houses as a sexy maid. You know, I think it tells a lot about them, what they didn't want to share about their true jobs. And then, yeah, I love that they both have a passion because, you know, I think we can all relate to that of having to do other things to get by, whether it's financially or creatively, trying to be fulfilled.
Yeah, I feel like it was very honest, and I have had probably 30 jobs, and I felt like that was something that drew me to Mary as well, because I could just relate to doing what it takes to pay the rent.
I love your voiceover work in the movie, though. I love it.
I hope it gets me some voiceover jobs.
There we go. Hopefully not for menopause cream.
Yeah, not the papaya vagina cream.
And then Ben and Hayley, you know, obviously every single actor comes into a project and you all, you know, everybody has their own style and approach and way of working on scenes. And then you kind of create a unique style on each job with different scene partners that you work with based on how they work, based on how you work, and finding, you know, a real collaboration style. And so for both of you, did you come in with very similar approaches to your craft, or were you finding a space in the middle that really worked for both of you throughout this process?
I feel like we had a lot of I think we had a lot of trust in each other, and that Hannah really was kind of the thing that was like bridge any gap there. It's like we definitely have our own ways in. I think every actor has their own way in or whatever. But I really think that it was the trust that we had in Hannah. Hannah could literally shout anything from monitor, like crazy things, like do the worm, or you know, just say this right now. And we both were totally on board with that way of working, of just kind of trying whatever was coming up in the moment, and even if it was going to be embarrassing. And
I was so lucky you guys were willing.
Yeah, I felt like that was the thing that connected all of us in terms of the process with this one, was our trust in that part of it. Like, we all knew we were going to learn our lines and say it as it was written and do all that, but the trust in the other stuff was pretty exciting and unique, I think.
I think we also jumped in doing very intimate, close things very early. So if that didn't go well, the rest of the movie probably wouldn't have gone well, but we both trusted each other right off the top. And then from there, it was just, everything was so comfortable.
I feel like it really comes across between your characters. And then for you, Hannah, I was interested in as a director, taking the experience of your last feature, the shorts that you've directed, what you really carried through from those previous experiences and how you wanted to approach this and how you wanted to work on this film directorially.
Yeah, you learn so much from each project that you take into the next one. And then of course you do that one and you're like, wait a minute, I learned so much on this one, you know? So your last thing is never your best thing, because we're all striving to grow. And it was important to challenge ourselves on this one. I try to challenge myself on each one. And I think that was really why I wanted to do so much improv, because I appreciate that genre so much in that medium. And I was lucky enough to have actors who were willing to do that, because I love the magic that can come out of those spontaneous moments. Even though I'm such a huge prepper, I prep everything to death, but you do that so you can then just let it all go. And I think everything in my life is about learning to let go to a certain extent, because I'm such a control freak. So it's a very, very big test for me.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I love about your films, Hannah, is the fact that they all have such a distinctive voice and style. And I think that both of your performances in this film really, you know, and that chemistry and the way that you work together on scenes really is what kind of carries it all through and really brings audiences into that journey. And very much looking forward to the sequel with Mark and Mary in a band. Thank you so much to all of you for taking time today.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.